Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Today we are talking to a self-described friendly neighborhood arachnid, mercenary video editor, voice actor, and CNC enthusiast, among other things. He's also a fellow giant robot enthusiast. He is fellow YouTuber Dr. White. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. And might I say, fucking love punchy robots.
In punchy robots.
Apologies. Drop an F-bomb immediately in my apology.
Oh no, there's no fucking need for that. If anybody's going to be apologizing, it's me. I'm the colonial from the other side of the pond, you know.
Oh, go nuts. I don't mind.
We fucking well shall. So, as I said, a fellow YouTuber, and you have done some really nice videos on not only Mechwarrior, the Mechwarrior 4 games, of which, you know, those were my starting point as well in that particular franchise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But also
great springboard into that series, though.
Oh, yeah. They're nicely accessible, but also probably some of the easier ones to get running on modern systems these days. It's funny how difficult it is anyway. If you're, not going to just jump right into Mechwarrior 5, obviously, which is the easiest.
But before we had Mech 5, Mech 4 was... It also depends least on knowing the mythos, because it's quite a self-contained story on a single world between two groups. It doesn't really require you to understand the larger setting. It's just, oh, I'm with Davian, there was Steiner, we're at war. Brr, brr, brr.
Steiner folks kill my family. I kill Steiner folks. Vengeance.
Ew, stepped in some Steiner.
Casey. Glorious clown boy.
Why would they do this to our clown boy?
Well, if you're going to have you play as one of the quote-unquote kind of baddies in the expansion, well, having you kill one of the more funny of the side characters from the start is probably a good way to introduce that.
Yeah. It's just weird that it's implied that he, of all the party members, was complacent with Ian's iron-fisted rule. It's just like, oh, that's not how I saw him in my campaign. I guess it's a matter of choosing endings.
Yeah.
But
even in the other ending where you do become the Duke as opposed to letting your sister take care of it, I never thought of Casey as the kind of guy who would go along with this kind of crap. You'd think he would. Yeah,
he's just a jokester.
Yeah, you think he would have been a recruitable lance mate, having him show up and having turned against Ian and locked up in a political prison or something.
Him rather than fucking Damien Squire. Like,
yeah,
what?
Like Carl makes.
Hello, I showed up in the last 4 missions.
Yeah, Carl makes sense because he effed off, before the final mission if you make that choice. But it's all very strange.
It's annoying because, again, from a narrative perspective, that choice was posed as your sister is going to do this dramatic rush to give you a chance to get something to reclaim, like, the throne. And in that larger setting, like, dramatic self-sacrifices are not uncommon, and to throw them away on the off chance of maybe you could save them just seems like you're being... I mean, obviously, video game logic, you have to have that sort of narrative flow, but it just feels a little bit like spit in the face of, no, I refuse to let you do this dramatic self-sacrifice thing. I'm going to waste our chances of getting the good gear and, put more of our people at risk of dying in this conflict because I must save my sister. That to me feels like weirdly more selfish.
And even then, you don't get that much good gear after that.
Like... I know it's not really an option they could have because of how the mechanic works, and also it wouldn't really make sense, but I feel like the choice should have been, do you take your lance mates with you to that mission, for the bunker mission? And being like, do I task my lance mates with rescuing my sister, or do I take them with me to try and help take this bunker? And making that be the difficulty slider, essentially, where the choice is... But they were like, no, we have to have like good ending, bad ending. It doesn't matter. It's a game from like 20 years ago. Who gives a shit?
Yeah. Well, I recently started playing Mechwarrior 3 for Mech Mondays, the one that just prior to that, and once you get it functionally running, it holds up significantly. Oh, yeah. But also, just some of the stuff in these older games really, really makes me wish that these mechanics had folded into the more modern ones. Like, just being able to have terrain deformation in a mech game says a lot.
early games and train deformation always is something that I feel like we stepped back on. So, for example, the one that comes to my mind is the Delta Force series. That had really decent terrain deformation because the ground was technically voxels. So it had a very nice sort of like, you could like blow holes in buildings if I remember correctly. It's been years since I played it, but God, that game was good.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, you also have like, the ones everybody knows about, the Red Faction games and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Where
the Geomod was an attempt to bring that sort of environmental manipulation into the age of like sort of BSP partitioning and this sort of model-centric mapping that we had post Quake 2, realistically.
Yeah, when things really went for the standardized 3D polygon models for these kinds of things.
Yeah. But I mean, it's sort of making a comeback now. I kind of wish the Red Faction Guerrilla engine got more use, because that's quite a powerful engine, and I feel like more games could benefit from having it.
Yeah, this is a number of games. This is a game I'm going to mention as we go into more of the RTS, action RTS stuff. But Heavy Gear 2 had the Dark Side engine that they developed for that was used for other things, like the second Interstate game, that Park Combat one. But that one has some good stuff to it as well. Not just in terms of how the AI works in it and how you had the semi-RTS mode with the tactical map, but also the way things just blow up and collapse and stuff like that for the buildings. There's some good stuff in that. But yeah, speaking of literally of RTS and stuff like that, I think one of the first videos of yours that I saw were those Mechwarrior videos, which are really funny too, which is always nice. And
thank you.
Yeah, and always nice to hear text coming in like, if it's worth blowing up, it's worth blowing up by the megaton.
That's a funny thing, because I actually originally wanted the line when, I forget if it was his catapult or one of the other ones, but he mentioned one where where a mech was carrying so much ammo that, like, if you're going to explode, you might as well be visible from orbit. And I wanted to use that line, and I went to go ask him, like, hey, which line is that? And I thought, wait, if I'm asking Tex for a line, I could just get a fresh one from him. And I was like, so you wouldn't mind if you did a line for me? And he just turned around and went, yes, I'll do it. and then 20 minutes later, he sent me the line, and I was like ecstatic. Oh, he is such a cool dude.
Yeah.
Genuinely one of the chillest dudes I've ever met. Like, fuck.
He's got a voice that says this man has lived. Yeah.
That's realistically my experience with these kind of people. Like, I wouldn't say I'm massively familiar in terms of like friendship wise, but I've spoken to Mandalore a few times, and he's quite a chill guy in like conversation. Like we've talked shit about Marathon, which was fun. And obviously I know Thunderpsyker quite closely. Shout outs to my boy Thunderpsyker and his new Dawn of War video.
Nice.
But RTS games, I mean.
Well, there you go.
We were actually talking about Dawn of War 3 earlier, and just being like, man, that's gonna suck to make as a video. Because that means he has to play. Like, he was like, yeah, but you have to do CNC4, and I was just like, you son of a bitch.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Why would you do this to me?
I mean, you don't have to. You can just keep.
I must.
You can keep alluding to the fact that you're never going to, and that game does not exist for the obvious reason that it sucks ass.
I want to do it in a giant flyby of anything I haven't covered. Like, oh yeah, here's CNC4, it's bad. And then be like, oh, but let me tell you about Soul Survivor.
Oh, God.
Just bounce around stuff like that and talk about, like, because I mean, obviously, like, one of the things we were planning to talk about today was RTS games and potential adaptations of them to other genres.
Yes, because one of the two of the major videos of yours that I've watched repeatedly, frankly, the one you did on Command and Conquer Renegade, one of my favorite games. Obviously,
it's a damn good. It's a good FPS game.
It's a good FPS and the best non-official G.I. Joe game ever made.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, give Joe Coogan a shiny mask and Cobra Commander. Well, let's face facts. You take the Obelisk of Light, make it less scorpion tail shaped, make it into a giant, rising cobra with lasers coming out of its eyes,
or like a pyramid or something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, It is. Command and Conquer is basically what happens if the battle between the Joes and Cobra gets interrupted by a giant alien space meteor.
Basically, yeah.
And
I mean, I could go on a rant about lore. Like, it's something I want to do when I eventually get around to covering the original 2 games. But the first Tiberium War, like, CNC 1, is a really weird one because it's not realistically a global war in the way that, like, the later ones are. It's a consistent, like, lengthy chain of terrorist attacks and responses to said terrorist attacks. Like, the conflict literally starts when, like, Nod-aligned forces bomb a meeting at, like, a grain trade or something like that, and GDI is like, okay, that's it, we're clamping down on them across the globe. And that's when the Brotherhood goes, surprise, dickhead, I have lasers! And everyone's like,
holy shit,
where the fuck were you keeping those?
It's like, oh wait, these people we thought were just a bunch of terrorists, it turns out, oh, they have resources, they have technology, and they have an agenda that's going to require them conquering everything. We need to do something.
They have cornered, like, one of the opening cutscenes straight up says that Nod has cornered the global gold market on top of, like, Tiberium and all that, because at that point Tiberium can be refined into basically any material. So they have just cornered the stock exchange. They are ridiculously funded. And that, I think, is something that doesn't get played into too well in the later games. It's something I rant about in the CNC3 video as well, like the downgrade of the units to literal angry mobs. It's just like, come on, we had these cool, like, Cobra Force looking future troopers and their cool helmets, and then it's like, and this guy has a t-shirt and a AR-15 that doesn't quite, like, rack properly, but don't worry, there's like 20 of them. We'll throw them at, like, in a wave. It's just
that's a bit more Red Alert kind of aesthetic.
Yeah, I don't even start Red Alert though. That game was bipolar. Like,
I remember the first CNC game I ever played, and played badly because I was just a kid at the time, was the original Red Alert. Going through that mission, the first Allied mission where you have to rescue Einstein from the Soviets, and I just kept getting killed over and over and over. Mission failed, because I didn't pay attention to the briefing, and I didn't read the manual, and I just, I'm just going to move my guys in here and shoot everything. It's like, you need to take out the power plant first, otherwise the defense is going to cut you down like mincemeat.
It doesn't do a very good job of teaching or signposting those objectives either. Like, the Soviet campaign is far softer in how its progression goes. There's not very many missions in that where you're given a single fragile unit you have to protect. And as much as I love Red Alert 1, like, I think it's a fantastic game. I think realistically 2 was where the Red Alert series peaked.
Yeah,
I mean, everyone will say that,
especially.
But 1 had this strange, I can't quite describe it. This strange environment, this feeling to it. This
it took itself seriously.
I don't want to say.
Like, as people always say, the Red Alert, it's campy and stuff like that. The first one was not campy. It was like wartime. It was gritty. It's just obviously the delivery couldn't necessarily get it out as well as they probably would have liked to, but that was honestly a serious war story. Greece has been overrun by the Soviet forces. The Parthenon has been bombed, and you have these war crimes. The atomic bombs are being developed and are going to be dropped on us, and then you have possibly one of the
and then you have my favorite thing is the general, the Greek general in the Allied campaign.
He is just
spends basically half the campaign. Yeah, he's like, my homeland has been destroyed, but I can't worry about that. Like, there are points where retaking Greece is on the table, and generals are like, no, we can't do that. We can't focus on that right now. We've got other objectives that are more important. And he's just like, that's the nature of war.
He just bites his tongue and just like, he's right, damn it. Which I think in the expansion for Red Alert, they do have moments where he does actually, have those missions where he's trying to take Greece back from the Soviets. Yeah,
which I think is well deserved. I'd say on its campiness scale, I'd put it alongside, say, like Red Dawn
Yeah.
That old movie.
That's another movie that, it's 80s, and, it's Patrick Swayze. And
yeah.
But that one also takes itself seriously.
Yeah. It takes the concept of foreign invasion and occupation quite seriously, even though its delivery is ultimately, because of just the nature of it, quite campy.
Yeah. Well,
but then 2 obviously goes completely sideways, depending on the base game is just bananas, sci-fi B movie, and then Yuri's Revenge is just like...
That's the one where things started going really over the shark in that case. Like, when you start introducing parodies of Microsoft and, what do they call him in that? I forget what they called, Bill Gates' surrogate and that, but,
Oh, yeah.
Hollywood Mission, stuff like that.
Yeah, and just fucking, like, time travel and UFOs and things, and, like... Red Alert 2 had some wacky moments like that,
but
it wasn't far. Like, yeah,
like you have Red Alert 1, which, like, you see that cutscene with Tanya when she's captured. Tanya Adams in the Allied Commando unit, and you have to send in a spy to rescue her, and she's like at the mercy of some Soviet torturer, and he's like, this injection will make you talk, but the effects are quite permanent, and he's tracing it.
Fucking love that line.
Yeah, and then the spy busts in. He gets shot, tosses her a gun with his dying breath. She knocks the guy under her chair and just like from behind just starts emptying the gun. She's bruised and bloodied and everything. That honestly is pretty freaking dark and gritty. It's obviously somewhat larger than life, but it hasn't gone over the top yet, like Red Alert, Yuri's Revenge, and especially Red Alert 3 would do.
Plus, it's the fact that agent is the character you've been controlling for that mission. You've been, like, dodging dogs and moving around and doing all this cool sneaking shit.
It's really difficult.
Yeah, and it's a nightmarish micromanagement. Like, in the remaster, it's actually a lot easier because the screen is much larger and they actually reveal a lot more space around spies now for some reason. But it's definitely one of those missions where you do a thing and then your character, the one unit you've had is then killed at the end. Essentially, it's but in the pursuit of achieving the objective.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, war requiring sacrifice and all that stuff. Like letting Greece be occupied because you have other more important missions like destroying the Iron Curtain device, or dealing with the Soviet invasion and breaking out in another part of the world. That whole aspect of it.
That's the weird thing. I know we're sort of hyper-focusing here on CNC at the moment. I find it quite interesting that Red Alert went away from its gritty origin, whereas CNC leaned more into it.
Yeah.
Renegade is the peak example of how kind of wacky bananas CNC 1 could be. But then you get to, like, Tib Sun, and that is, as I said in my video, one of the best depictions of a dystopian future I can think of.
Yeah, and
where we are losing.
Yeah. And an ecological post-apocalypse as opposed to the post-nuclear one that we're used to for, like, Fallout and the like. It's honestly very few times you see Earth being xenoformed, which is, I guess, the technical term here. There's a couple of, science fiction examples. The War Against the, I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but War Against the Ktor series, which is very much similar in the sense that an alien ecosystem has landed on Earth that's not actually being invaded. It's just the ecosystem itself is spreading and is transforming Earth into something completely alien that is hostile to us.
See, I genuinely love the plan they had with Tiberium being this sort of mineable resource and it being used essentially as a seedable mining platform. You send it out about 50 years ahead of your ship. By the time you get there, every valuable material is on the surface ready for you to just pick up and leave. I really didn't... I'm not sure how I feel about the change from Tiberium being a plant-like substance with weird bulbs and then the crystals growing out of it.
Yeah.
And then, the idea of that you could break the crystals off and it would grow new ones over time as it leaches more material out of the ground. Versus this weird Ice 9 constantly growing crystalline structure, because that has some inherent problems. Like the CNC3 introducing the idea that Tiberium turns more material into more Tiberium kind of spat in the face of everything that Tib Sun was doing, which is this isn't necessarily becoming a barren world, it's becoming an inhuman world.
Yeah.
And it will probably be harvested at some point, but right now it's like I saw all the life forms and such being both simultaneously life attempting to avoid destruction at the hands of a alien material and mutating to try and defeat that, as well as also a lot of it being sort of implied ecostructure around the spreading of it. For example, like trees being converted into spore blossoms.
Yeah, or those vein holes that, spew out toxic Tiberium gas, which inevitably would cause either more mutations in the local flora and fauna, or just, start growing Tiberium fields.
Or you could just slap a tower on top of it and start tapping that gas off. Mm-hmm. And suddenly now this giant vein field is essentially just a massive singular bulb of Tiberium, and you've got this central hole that is coughing up a material you want to refine, which I believe that's what obviously this is all fandom speculation here, but this is what I think Kane saw in Tacitus that allowed him to create the Tiberium missiles in Tibsun.
Yeah,
was the idea of
that's literally where he was collecting the gases that would be required for that thing.
Yeah. He was harvesting it the same way that another species that would arrive later to harvest it would try and do the same.
Yeah.
He was just utilizing the products in, direct conflict, as opposed to whatever processes or means I want to call them scrin, but it feels like it's been tainted by the later.
Even in the Tiberium Sun, the alien ship that the Brother of Nod created, based on the information from the Tacitus and stuff, like the big blue spaceship thingy that Vega decided to go for a little joyride with.
Yeah, he just borrows it whoops.
Well, the guy was on so many drugs, let's face facts. But it's referred to in the files as the Scrin ship. So.
Specifically, it's referred to as a scout ship, which
makes you wonder what the main ships were going to be like.
Yeah, that to me was holy shit, these guys must be huge if this is their scouting vehicle.
Yeah,
but again,
Independence Day, their main battleships are city sized, just crackers.
Well, that's the thing is in the lore of 3 and the documents, they are the motherships in 3 are city sized. They show up and they delete entire cities to try and mine under them for deep Tiberian veins, and they don't have the ability to show that scale in game. It's the same problem that the Kodiak has in Tibsun, is that it's to be functional in game and not be, awkwardly sized compared to your buildings. It has to be tiny. Mm-hmm. But then it's well, this doesn't have the sense of scale of this being the weird HQ that all of my guys are in.
Yeah, I mean that's another problem with the CNC games. I think from inception, the scaling issue. You have all your infantry, which is this big, and your tank, which should be about this big, is really about that big.
Yeah.
It's always been wondering, okay, I got an APC here. How many... okay, is this a clown car APC? I'm putting in so many people in there. It shouldn't fit.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. Red Alert 2 and the magic of wait, I can fit more infantry in here if I put them all inside APCs first, because I think the flak tracks take up 4 slots a piece, and they have 5 infantry slots inside. So it's just well, why the fuck wouldn't I do that? It's a little bit more money, but I can fit a whole extra guy in there.
There we go.
But yeah, CNC is to me one of my favorite favorite science fiction settings, and I'm sad where it wound up. And I mean, honestly, there's a lot of series like that. I have the same kind of opinion on Syndicate and where it wound up. I would love there to be a new Syndicate game. Hell, I wouldn't even mind if it was another FPS, if it was good.
Yeah. I've had some time to think about it. I remember when that one came out, the 2012-2013 Starbreeze Syndicate game. And I don't have that much nostalgia for the 1993 one for Bullfrog. It's just for them, mine was Dungeon Keeper, so Syndicate was
Oh yeah. Bullfrog did so many great games. Dungeon Keeper, Populous. I mean,
Black and White.
Wait, did they do Populous? Black and White was Black Isle.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right. Okay, I'm mixing that one up, but
Who did Populous? Sorry, go on.
No, okay, but Like I said, I didn't have that much. Yeah, I knew about Syndicate, and I'd fooled around with it a little bit when it came out on GOG back when that release of it. But okay, it's like, okay, this is cool, the concept, but it's not necessarily my thing. Then that Syndicate, that first trailer that popped up was like, okay, I can get behind this. It's like the only Skrillex song I actually like. That's how much. Yeah.
It's actually funny. I tried to give that to Funder to use for the recent video he put out because he had a DMCA strike against the original music he had during a cutscene he wanted to do with like someone doing an MLG sniper montage.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, use the Skrillex music from Syndicate because I used it and I haven't been hit over DMCA. I don't think they want to admit it existed.
Well, there you go. Wow, it works. But yeah, I remember playing that when it came out and liking it a lot. It's definitely a damn good, shooter. I think going back thinking about it, and I've been thinking about this for a while now. There are a couple of reasons why that game just like crashed in terms of sales. It just like did not do well at all. And eventually, the people who worked on that would go on to create machine games and, Wolfenstein, The New Order. And
yeah.
Like that. And
it was honestly impressive.
Oh, yeah. And there's definitely DNA between those two. And you can see a lot of stuff from the Syndicate, certain ideas that percolated out. Cyberpunk 2077, the quick hacks are basically the breach mechanics from Syndicate. If you look at them, they're working very similar ways, obviously more advanced, but the concepts
you could say that abilities and spells like that have been around since like before. Yeah. Like arguably, like if I wanted to think of an example before that, I think Mass Effect 1 had that kind of sort of like I feel like making it a mini game with like a sweet spot where it does better is quite a nice mechanic. I think Gears of War mastered that with the reloading. Reload. Yeah, which was nice. But yeah, it's certainly one of those games where it's like they had something here, and there's certainly like I go back to it occasionally. Like I made a fucking video on it, for Christ's sakes.
I know.
Like I have a weird soft spot in my heart for that game, and I can warmly and affectionately say it fucking sucks. With like this real pride in it. Like, look at this gross, disformed potato child. Look at how like bad the pacing is and how the plot is completely bananas.
Yeah.
And how
it's kind of funny because they got Richard K. Morgan, who's the author of, Altered Carbon and stuff like that, to do the script for the game. You'd think he would do a better job at it.
Yeah. It's man, it's also the fact that it's sandwiched between so many really, really good titles of that era. Yeah. Like as I alluded to, like it gives me the feelings of like Half-Life 2 quite a lot in some places, and in others like Human Revolution would come out a year later and completely like dominate the cyberpunk, dystopian future market, I guess.
Yeah, that whole...
I heard... Go on.
No, it's just like that game really just... If they had any chance... If Syndicate had any chance of really making a mark in that once Human Revolution came out, there was no chance at all of any kind of return to the spotlight of any way, shape, or form now with any kind of expansion or DLC. No chance. It's just, everybody was just looking there instead, then for good reason, obviously.
I mean, it is what it is, and it's to link onto similar disappointments. There was a CNC FPS plan, a second CNC FPS planned, because they already made Renegade. Yeah, and the more I hear about that, like the leaked, not really leaked, but the openly known design documents and plans, it was the campiest, poorly written, like, oh my god, I'm in GDI, but my dad was a Nod guy. It's like my sister or something is in Nod, and I don't know how I feel about that. And like this weird, like, I think they were gonna have a morality system where you could choose which side you wanted to like align with. By like choosing objectives that help one side or the other, which admittedly I think is kind of a neat idea.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I want that because I really wish a bad game is better than no game. Like in I know a lot of people have like I think more recently like Gabe Newell did that big speech in the 20th anniversary of Half-Life documentary where he's just like suck is forever, but I kind of want to stipulate like a addendum to that, which is suck is forever, nothing is also forever.
Exactly.
I'd rather be disappointed at something and have something to be disappointed at than have that sort of lingering thought of, well, it could have been good, maybe, and never resolved.
Blue balls for life.
Yeah.
Not to mention that one man's disappointment is another man's cult classic, so.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Case in point, me and Syndicate.
Yeah, exactly. I think when you go, like I was thinking back to Syndicate, aside from the timing it came out between other great releases that completely overshadowed it, I mean, among other things, there's also the fact that, this is a Syndicate game made in a completely different genre, made by a completely different developer. All the people at Bullfrog, nobody's involved in that. If you look at Renegade, which has had a much better reception amongst the Command & Conquer fan base, even though the fact it was a completely different genre, it was being made by Westwood. These were the people who made CNC, who are going to continue making CNC for the foreseeable future. This was just like, hey, we're going to try to do a little something different for once. Don't worry, we're still continuing to make the kind of games that we're known for and we always want to do. But here's a little something for you guys to try out, enjoy. Whereas this was, we're going to bring back Syndicate as an FPS. And you haven't had a Syndicate in how long since Syndicate Wars had come out before So there's that.
It was definitely one that made a lot of people go like, what? Why? Like it's such a bizarre like return to a franchise. It's whenever a game switches genre like that, it is always a gamble, and it is always one that you really have to consider, right? How will that transfer this well? Like, it's difficult to find other examples because I'm trying to think of ones where it's happened, but nothing's coming to mind.
Well, Renegade is probably the one that I would use as a direct comparison between the two, because the other thing that comes to mind, there are basically three things. The first is the timing between releases and the original publisher not being involved and stuff like that. The second one is how much of the RTS original mechanics are brought into the new game. In the case of Renegade, you're playing as a commando. What does a commando do during an RTS battle? Shoots enemies and blows up buildings. What do you do in Renegade? You shoot enemies and you blow up buildings. All it's changed is the perspective. Instead of being the top-down commander who's sending in reinforcements and doing all that stuff, you're now the guy on the ground, and the guy on the other end of your microphone, talking to you in your ear, giving your objectives, is sending in reinforcements and all that stuff. You haven't really changed the game. You've changed the POV that the player has and the point of control that the player has.
It's funny you mentioned that because I can actually tie that to another example of the opposite direction. We were talking earlier about Mechwarrior 4.
Yeah.
Its companion game, Mech Commander, puts you in the over-the-top control of a whole lance. And in the same vein, I find that, like, because it came out at the same time, had the same development team, uses a lot of the shared assets, it feels better and more natural, and it feels like it directly links tightly with the setting. In a similar vein, admittedly, it got hamstringed because it was console exclusive. I think it was a console exclusive for a while. Halo Wars.
Yeah, I think it was.
Halo was... I mean, man, that could have been really good. In fact, there are people to this day who are upset that the CNC Generals mod, Halo Gen, got a DMCA because it was looking so promising. Because that is a setting that can work really well with the large-scale combat. Because we see a little bit of that in Reach, for example, where we see the sort of the Reach Defense Force sort of mobilizing that giant like wave of vehicles to try and like push some Spartans forwards. It has the potential to have that level of scale.
Yeah, and the reverse also. Having an RTS become an FPS, that same scale and variety of vehicles and units and stuff like that translates really well. Like,
oh yeah,
when
absolutely,
you're just going around like shooting, shoot bang. One of the criticisms like Call of Duty always gets is that you're just shooting the same guys over and over and over again. In an RTS based FPS, which is a weird way of saying it, but you're shooting, okay, there's this guy, and here's a completely different guy, and here's some weird vehicles coming out, and there's all sorts of, stuff happening in these different, buildings that you're occupying and stuff like that. And it gives you that different perspective. One of the things I love about Renegade is that you go into, like, the first hand of Nod that you encountered, I think, during the second level. And it's not just the building that you see from, the RTS. It's all the underground stuff that would have to be there in order to make it work. You've got the command post, the barracks, the underneath where the enemies are sleeping. You've got an entire training area with your mock terrain that the guys are training in and shooting each other.
There's one thing. Oh, I think it's either it's not strings. It's oh god, I've forgotten the other guy. I mentioned him in my Tib Sun video, and he's a cool law dude whose name Jeffield, that's it. I'm terrible with names, so I hope I don't see this and think I don't care about them. They did a breakdown, I think it was them, did a breakdown on the Hand of Nod. That weird terminal in the corridor, like right as you go through the second door inwards. So like the main hall is like a good like main entrance area. On the left is a lift to the helipad and medic bay, which immediately is like, oh wait, the Brotherhood care enough about their soldiers to have their medical facilities immediately accessible from the front entrance of the base and accessible by helicopter. That's good.
Yeah.
And then direct ahead is a shrine to the dead. Like they have a little nod-shaped shrine that just lists through, like some people say, oh no, actually it's going through like commandments and religious things, and it's like, well, it could be both. It could be a mix of Brotherhood sort of scripture and more pseudo-religious elements, as well as
button and it changes tabs. It's not that complicated.
Yeah. Or it just runs them both in like lines, so it's like, here's the casualties for the day, may they be rest in peace, and here's Kane's words of the day, lol, fuck GDI. now back to the Fallen.
Yeah, exactly.
But I liked CNC1's sorry to tangent here. I liked CNC1's approach to Nod being spiritual in a more quiet sense, in that the average soldier doesn't necessarily have to be totally in on it. They're in on the cult personality around Kane, but maybe not into the religion. And then as the world slowly becomes more corrupted, the people who are in it start going, oh wait, oh fuck, he was right, and like get more and more into the faith.
Yeah.
Which is apparent in Tib Sun. Which, I mean, I would too if some guy showed up and said, hey, I'm going to live for about 100 years, or maybe longer. I've been visible in the public space for about 100 years, and I'm going to tell you all about this ecological disaster in vivid detail of every step, and then every step starts occurring. I would be like, yeah, that guy's probably the Messiah. Like, I'm going to go worship this guy now because he knows what he's talking about.
Oh, yeah, and also the fact that, he's the places in the world that are most affected by the Tiberium infection are also the parts of the world where A, he's, got the most influence, and two, are also the places that are, third world countries and stuff like that. And there's like, okay, we already don't necessarily have the best relation with the places that aren't being affected by this crap, but also they're not being affected by this crap. We are. We're on this guy's side.
Yeah. Well, that's oh god, I don't want to spoil too much about the CNC3 video, but that's something I'm exploring, is this sort of narrative issue that GDI isn't doing a very good job. They are very much a bureaucratic mess that is focusing on their core demographic of voters and financial backers and the like.
What do you mean, a world government that only cares about the people that provided with its main source of resources? I mean, that's...
I know, right? Like, they focus all their efforts on nations that were, well, Western or Western-aligned nations, and therefore there's this massive shift in quality of life between places that GDI is focusing their control on, which is the blue zones, and then yellow zones where they seem to be doing jack shit, and it's just, riots, and of course Nod sentiment is going to bloom there, because they offer some semblance of order and law in exchange for faith and...
Yeah. And then you have the red zones.
No one goes there.
Yeah. Well, they're literally forgotten, along with a particular faction from Tib Sun.
Oh, God, Oh, God, the Forgotten. I feel so sad that they got gimped. There was supposed to be a plan for. So, Kane's Wrath is labeled CNC3 Episode 1 in the files. There were 4 episodes planned. GDI was going to have one, the Screen were going to have another one, and the Forgotten were going to have one. At least that's what I've managed to glean over the years of reading various leaks and lore and references. Like, they were going to have this whole thing with, like, the Forgotten being psychers and able to, like, integrate with the Skrin networks. Ooh. And that being how, like, Skrin technology is being taken over by human use is that. So part of the reason why Kane was pushing for research into mutation so hard and, you know, divination processes and that was because you need to be slightly Tiberium infused to operate Skrin technology and not die horribly.
Yeah.
And he was sort of trying to pursue a form of humanity that could do that because he wanted the towers. And to be able to use the towers, he needed a servitor class, essentially, that could operate them. And in the same vein, the Free Mutants were able to do that as well and posed a direct threat to his plan of, oh shit, if they get control over the tower, they'll be able to use the stuff as well. So I need to make sure they get stamped out as hard as possible to prevent GDI from working out, hang on a minute, these guys can use this stuff. But of course, that's all plot lines that never got used.
That's always one of the problems with having any kind of like long-term fictional setting that isn't necessarily all thought up from the beginning, and they're kind of like figuring things out as they go along. And then the people who are doing it are no longer the same people who are going to finish it.
Oh, yeah, don't get me. There is so many series where that's happened. Mm-hmm. I feel like Half-Life has a big issue with that. I don't think Laidlaw was brought in for... it was brought in for Half-Life Alyx, and I think it shows. I like Half-Life Alyx, but something about its pacing and writing just feels...
off.
I don't know. Yeah, like it's definitely a different experience. I like it, but it's not a Half-Life game to me.
Yeah. Well, actually, speaking of stories feeling off, going back to Syndicate for a second here, the third thing is that it doesn't reflect the themes and story of the original game. In the original game, who are you playing? You're playing a corporate, essentially, master of assassins, sending out cybernetically modified, lobotomized psychos to just wreak terrorist havoc upon your competitors, mind control people into submission, and become the corporate ruler of the world. In Syndicate 2012, you were playing as one of those agents, which is perfect. It falls into that, whole renegade, from a different perspective thing. But you end up turning against Eurocorp. No. You need to be able to play a complete bastard. You need to be a Eurocorp ride or die loyalist who is going to go over and, if not, win things for Eurocorp, take over Eurocorp and just, sit your ass on Brian Cox's desk, take out a cigar and just like, oh yeah, now we're going to
work your way up the corporate ladder to being a overseer.
Yeah. Or better yet, shoot Dr. Drawl in the back of the goddamn head when she's walking away.
Yeah, like, you fucked up my memories. You're part of the problem. Like, come on, man. I honestly think a better sort of approach to the narrative that would have been having a schism inside Eurocorp being the main narrative point, and having you be able to choose which side of that inter-office politics you want to side on, because that would have fit really well with the whole you can't break this, it's just inevitable, but you can choose which side of the should we be using kids for soldiers like debate. Like, because that gives you the choice of I want to be a horrible bastard and like work my way up the corporate tree and hang out with what's his face and be like, oh yes, my boy, you're really good at doing terrible things, or like maybe be like, Drill's kind of right. Using kids is a bit of a bad look. We're gonna get some real PR problems with this.
Yeah,
like having that be the drive, because I allude to it in my review of Syndicate, but the fact that we're playing a Eurocorp member. And during it, we come across people talking about the, it's not called the Cult of Apocalypse, that's XCOM.
The Church of the New Epoch, I think it's called.
Yeah, Church of the New Epoch, yeah. Means Eurocorp will win. Flat out, for the necessity of the plot, Eurocorp will win. they need to win because that's how the Church and New Epoch come into play. You are that. It's not like Reach where you're told like you are not going to win. Have fun losing. It's congratulations, you got to the end. Have fun being a fugitive for like the rest of your life as your company takes over the moon.
Yeah,
and then has to like fight an evil fucking mega cult that want to like link with, I think it's linked with aliens or something. Well, no, they want to like destroy all life on Earth or something like that. It was a weird ending.
If I remember correctly from Syndicate Wars, basically a bunch of scientists have been working on chip technology and merged their consciousness into a single, hive mind, and they wanted to do that to everybody. So
I'm pretty sure the ending was the council want to wipe out life on Earth to replace it with themselves.
Which would come
that's
down
why
to
that's why they're on the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that would come down to the same thing. If everybody is them, then nobody is anybody else. But that would have been actually, if they wanted to do like almost like a semi kind of reboot kind of thing, have one of those two factions you mentioned, like that Schism and Eurocorp, have one of those be the proto Church of the New Epoch, and have literally have the enemies you're facing be, literally the chips in their heads are mind controlling them into turning against Eurocorp.
Yeah,
have that bring in some of the downsider disruptors or subverters, the terrorist group that don't have chips, and have them like being introducing like viruses into the chip network that are fucking around with people's chips. Also,
you could have done so much more with that setting, and it saddens me that we got a very, very basic. I'm going to rebel against the guy. It's almost a play-for-play repeat of Haze.
Yeah.
Right down to the halfway through you decide, no, I'm going to side with the rebels. It happens so often with these start as the bad guy games. And it's understandable. It's very hard to market a game where you play as the villain.
It's GTA.
But even in GTA, you have this sort of like psychological link of I'm doing right by myself and my people. Like, Michael just wants to help his family. Franklin wants to make it big in a world that, sees him as expendable. And Trevor is Trevor. And then GTA 4 is all about a PTSD-ridden, walking, talking human night terror who is like, I have come to make revenge for the war. And then has to come to grips with the fact that he's, one of 100 people who have had similar experiences, and he's just screaming into the darkness.
Yeah.
It's, and the early games have similar veins of more campy, more 80s style, our gang must be superior, oh no, they're selling smack and that's not doing very good, and,
Yeah, you very much.
These kind of things.
If you're going to play as the bad guy, you definitely need to have an enemy who's even worse than you, just to provide that contrast.
Or something to have a moral high ground on.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, it's actually the one thing people point to when they argue for Caesar's Legion in Fallout New Vegas, which fun campaign to play through, not politically a viable one. But when people argue for that, they point to how like broken the NCR is, and it's fantastic that you can say that faction is developed enough to have, they're not the good guys. They're only good if you get in there and, whip them into shape.
Yeah.
They're horribly bureaucratic and corrupted in places and have real problems. And you, as good karma McGood guy, can go in and be like, stop doing crimes. And because that's an option versus, hey, I want you to kill a guy. You have no choice in the matter. Go kill him. It becomes inherently they're the better of two choices because they're the good guys.
Yeah. It's often the case of a moral choice in a lot of games where it's like, help this person or eat this kitten. You decide.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, in Syndicate's defense, the quote-unquote rebels, the subverters, the downsiders, are not good guys at all. I mean, you never actually team up with them. You just gun them down when they're trying to kill you, and they have no problem causing, mass casualties.
They want you dead. Like, they're wielding, like, thermite flamethrowers and shit. It's like, bro, what?
You do.
Yeah. Oh, my God. That game is... It's one of the reasons why I love that game. There are moments in video games where you get power weapons, and they show off, like, a cool mechanic. Syndicate does them so well. Like the minigun just is such a. It doesn't slow you. It doesn't slow you down, so you just feel like you're running around. It's got this weird sort of like Doom 2016 energy, way before Doom 2016.
Yeah.
And then like the flamethrower sequences are also great. I can't remember if there's many sequences where you get to use. Like, the revolver you get towards the end of the game is also just fucking hilarious, just because of how crazy damaging it is.
Yeah.
It's obviously stylized after, like, Deckard's revolver from Blade Runner, so you just feel like a cool guy running around with this cool revolver. And it's moments like that in these very cinematic campaigns that I feel really sells well. There's moments like that in Renegade as well. For example, the mammoth tank sequences. Every time you get access to a mammoth, it's just like, oh yeah, time to fuck some shit up.
Yeah, or the first time you jump into a flame tank.
Oh god, yeah. the flame tank is honestly, they buffed the fuck out of it to make it a viable counter to the mammoth as an option. So in the multiplayer, it has enough armor to literally run up and ram the GDI defensive structure and like not die in the process. That is genuinely terrifying, considering that thing is designed to prevent like frontal assaults from single vehicles. Like nothing else can make that like rush. Like even the mammoth can barely make like halfway down the pathway before getting shot to bits by the obelisk. Whereas the GDI Advanced Defense Tower just struggles to deal with the flame tank's ridiculous armor.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I just like that. Shit, sorry, I'm
so
geeking out again about
they
like...
They would have to put some pretty good armor on that thing, considering that it's packing a pair of really big canisters full of highly flammable material. So yeah, it's probably a good thing that they did armor it properly.
That's actually something that I've always found interesting is what the hell is it spraying? Because a lot of people will say like, oh, well, it's probably like napalm or like some sort of weird gas compound, but I honestly think it's like a powder thrower. Because those aren't like you've probably seen like a sandblasting gun, right?
Yeah.
Run that through a hydrazine torch and have it blasting out thermite.
There's a reason why people who work in flour mills are very, very careful about sparks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like you could fit substantially more like packed in as powder, and it's probably a little more resilient to getting hit, especially if it has a very high flash point.
Yeah.
But that's me geeking out about stuff.
Yeah.
Next week
we have
we'll
some ideas for you.
Look, the space laser. I mean, people built it. We didn't mean to, but it happened. So don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, what else is fucking? Because I'm thinking of other games that have had this sort of transfer to first person, and I'm thinking of games that I really wish had that transfer. And in a weird way, I kind of would love, and this is a weird one to think about, I would kind of love a first-person Populous game. Because the idea of being like a really powerful shaman with like crazy magic spells that you can call upon, and just being this ridiculously powerful like mage and having followers that you have to like rally and get behind you, and then being your sort of meat and potatoes soldier type that you can order around, and then just being able to like cast spells on the fly, I think would be a really fun sort of I'm thinking of it sort of like a Mountain Blade thing, except you're sitting in the back like yeeting fireballs across the battlefield.
There is a game that is close to that. That's a Shiny Games Sacrifice. Yeah, Mandalore did a video on that one a while back. It's basically you are playing as a powerful mage. Exactly.
Oh, yes. Is that the one with the multiple gods?
Armies of guys that you then command to do your bidding to attack the other mage's altar, and you capture their souls, scrub them of all that nasty sins of working for the other guy, and then reincarnate them as your own units and all sorts of stuff like that. Yeah,
I remember that because it has the different gods, doesn't it? And they're all
exactly
kind of wacky and silly, but also like, oh man, I'm not sure if I want to support this.
Yeah, and it also has Tim Curry, just like Red Alert 3. So Yeah, because, and yeah, it does have those, like, I think it was like it's got 5 different gods. You have different, I think it's not necessarily a different campaign for each one, but, you know, it branches depending on which one you support, given the...
They had like objectives that were unique for each.
Yeah, exactly. And they have different ways of doing things. And there's the one god who's like the obvious evil one, and he's just like, yeah, I just love killing things. I don't want to kill everything, because then there wouldn't be anything left to kill. But I do so love killing things. Yeah.
I want more murder, please.
Yeah, and Tim Curry's god is the god of the air, and he's represented by just this highfalutin intellectual who's basically just a balloon with his face drawn on it, because he is
literally full of hot air.
Literally, yeah. The earth god is a earthworm who's all about industry and being, you know, a cool dude about rocks and stuff. Jennifer Hale is in charge of nature. It's just like, you know, it's definitely a Shiny Games kind of game. Definitely the same people who make Earthworm Jim and stuff like that. It's that kind of, you know, funny kind of aesthetic. But it's definitely, and also it starts out with your character being the last survivor of the apocalypse that you've just created and recapping everything from there. So, okay, yeah, this is going to go some dark places, but it's going to do so in style. And it brings
it's certainly a unique one, and it's not. The problem is from the looks of it, it's like the kind of game. It's like it looks cool in concept, but I don't think I want to play it because it doesn't look like the execution would be too enjoyable.
Yeah, that brings to mind, you know, we've talked about RTS, we talked about, you know, action games based on RTS. There's a whole middle ground of action RTS that combine the two. Like you mentioned, Mountain Blade, which is somewhere on that spectrum, you know, where you're on the ground and you're also directing your troops to do what you want at the same time. And sacrifice is also in there, and definitely execution-wise, that is a hard one to do. It's very difficult to do that kind of stuff where you're balancing the both aspects, where you are engaging in the direct conflict with your own character, but you're also having to manage all these other troops around you. Getting that balance is pretty difficult.
Yeah, it's certainly one that you either lean too heavily on one or the other, or you end up with a game that's quite bland. Like I covered a game called Angels Fall First that has some light RTS mechanics in it, and the RTS mechanics in that, like the squad leader mechanics, aren't particularly interesting, and I feel like it's sort of a punishment detail to be the commander, because you're not really enjoying the actual conflict on the ground. It's not particularly enjoyable.
Yeah.
Way back in 2011, there was a game that I have almost 100 hours in. Genuinely loved it, but it sort of died to death. Called Nuclear Dawn.
Nuclear Dawn, I've heard
And man, it was good. Weird, but good. Kind of a difficult one to explain. It's very much like they tried to get the RTS side of the RTS working quite well. So resource points generate actual currency that the RTS player can use, and they can build up a base as your commander and sort of lead you around. I liked the fact that the RTS commander was actually a character in the world, like a guy inside a building, so you could like sneak in and assassinate him, and they would be out without a commander for the respawn period, which, you know, there's like 20 seconds of respawn time, and then however long it takes them to run back inside the command pod and get back in the seat. And if you were camping that room, like waiting for them, you could delay them getting back in command for a good couple of minutes,
which would significantly handicap their team for as long as you can manage it.
It had so much promise. Like they had the promise of vehicles at one point. They were like, yeah, we're going to introduce vehicles as a thing you could have, and they were really cool. And the FPS side had like a leveling up mechanic where over the course of play you slowly got like better gear and improved like augments and the like that made your character feel like you have progression over the course of campaigns. So joining a server and being like, I'm a level 30 dude, people would just be like, oh fuck, oh that guy is going to demolish us, he has all the cool gear. It was a really fun experience, and I really enjoyed its style of combat. And even way back then I was involved in a small group of people who were trying to it's quite embarrassing really, because I was like I just started like college at the time, like, so I was like 18ish, and I was in a group of people who were trying to make like a red versus blue based on it. It was going to go nowhere because it was like a niche game to begin with. But it was fun to be in a event with those guys and just be like, and then we throw a grenade in the doghouse and we talk about how like that killed my dog, and it was just fun, dumb stuff. And I sometimes wonder about those people because I kind of lost contact with them. But yeah, sorry, that's a tangent. That game,
Tangents
I think, is probably
the channel lives, so no problem.
Oh, I am a tangential person. My existence is a momentary lapse of reason. But yes, Nuclear Dawn is probably, I think, my favorite example of the combination of FPS and RTS into a single combined source. There's been other games like it recently, like Executive Command, which apparently is quite decent.
Yeah, I've seen some good stuff from that one. There's also Bohemia Interactive is publishing. I don't know if there's publishing or doing also development, but it's one guy doing development of what's it called? It's on a desert planet. I should remember this. Damn it! What the hell is it called? It's.
I'm trying to think if I know it now myself, to be honest.
Yeah.
Come on, Bohemia.
Action RTS. Who's gonna get there first? Silica. Silica is the name of it.
Oh yes, this. I've seen little bits of this and was like, this looks interesting.
Yeah, same here. I will say this is something that a lot of these kinds of games, whether it's Natural Selection 2, Nuclear Dawn, you mentioned Silica and stuff like that. Also, Angels Fall First, and games that do this kind of combination of strategy game and of action, direct first person or third person action. They're usually multiplayer only. And I can see why. It's a lot easier for a small indie team to do that than it is to do that and a long single-player campaign with a narrative and characters and, a script and everything like that. But I have to admit, it is a bit disappointing to me because that is one of the things I like about these older RTSs are those single-player campaigns. Especially when they have dueling ones that kind of explore different perspectives on sometimes the same events going forward through that.
Well, that's actually something I kind of want to touch on when I get further into more RTS games, is there's definitely a sliding scale between campaigns that are showing you cool stuff in a world and the gameplay is just an element of like, hey, here's a cool story, and campaigns that are, okay, here's a new unit, learn how to micromanage it because it's going to be vital going forwards from here on in, because it's prepping you for multiplayer.
Yeah, the whole multiplayer tutorial thing.
Yeah. I found StarCraft 1, weirdly enough, had a really good campaign, not being just a tutorial for units. It was quite a unique kind of experience that let you explore the sort of narrative they were telling. StarCraft 2 absolutely was just here's a new unit, learn how it works.
Esports, the rise of esports, I think, has a lot to do with that.
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately, esports is arguably the heart of RTS games now. You can't make an RTS game now without expecting to have at least some competitive scene.
Yeah, which for better or for worse too. I mean, one, that means that once you have a good competitive scene, you have a built-in audience, which means you can make more games, which is obviously something that's very important. But on the other hand, it means you have to make that games for that audience, which means hyper-competitive, micro-heavy, whole actions per minute, whatever the fuck. I just want to be able to have a nice glom of guys go over to the enemy base and blow everything up. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
I just want to be able
select all units, attack, move all units.
Yeah, I just want to build my little base here until I get a nice little super weapon and then unleash absolute hell on the other side of the base.
Well, you know what? This is reminding me, because we were talking earlier about terrain deformation. There is an RTS game that I will shill the fuck out of, because I think it's arguably my favorite of its style of RTS, and that is 0K.
0K, I've heard something about that one, yeah.
It is a Supreme Commander alike, but to describe it like that is such a... it has the same kind of like scale and unit and sort of idea of you're going to build units in squads of 20, for example, for them to be effective and such. But it's got something like 10 different game-ending super weapons, and it's a matter of choose your flavor of pissing off the enemy. Like, yeah, I could build just artillery and shell you, or I could make a Gatling artillery that shells your base with random stats effects, or I could make a machine that deorbits asteroids onto your base. Or I can make a giant, like, atomic chisel that just carves the ground up. But it has full terrain deformation and terraforming as a mechanic. So most pro players will actually raise the ground around important structures to prevent the physical projectiles from units being fired from actually reaching structures. So, like, power plants will have, like, thick walls brought up around them to make artillery the only thing that can really hit them. And I really like the kind of dynamic gameplay that encourages, because you never know what your opponent's going to have, and having a doom blob of one effective unit could break their defenses, but you realize half their base is behind a wall or behind a particular fence that doesn't hard counter, but certainly is effective enough to deplete your blob, that you have to sort of pull back and reconsider what you're doing. And by the time, you know, you've done that, they've had enough time to readjust to your blob tactics.
Yeah.
It's a really good game.
Yeah. Or like, you know, for instance, you drop a whole bunch of artillery, create a bunch of craters, which are now foxholes for the enemy infantry. Which are now harder to hit as a result. Or, you know, tanks have a hard time getting across the broken terrain because you just bombed X building into a pile of scrap.
Elevation's a weird one. I'm not sure if they have, like, armor values on direction, but units can definitely shoot up higher than they can shoot down. So you can have units coming over the crest of over the lip of craters, and because radar is also based on line of sight, unless you have actual radar units, they can have, like, hard-hitting, like, anti-capital units hiding in craters, just sniping your guys as they climb over the ledge.
Nice.
And you never know what's down there, because you're like, anyone who goes over the lip of that crater just dies immediately, and I'm not sure what's in it, but...
Yeah, which would bring usefulness for, like, aerial scout units or stuff like that, like, you know, UAVs or drones that you can fly over to get an idea what's there.
Well, that's the other thing that I quite like about it. The game doesn't have factions. Instead, it has factories that each have unique playstyles. Your first factory is free. Everyone after that is quite expensive. They have a full roster of units, like from light to defending to... They call them skirmish and riot, being basically spammable and anti-spammable, and then so on and so forth. You know, capitals and the like. But every factory has one, and there's like, I think like 8 or 10 factories. One of them is straight up like, well, 2 of them are actually aircraft. One is gunships and one is regular planes. So you can have, like, bombers for one person, and the other person has, like, essentially sci-fi little birds just flying across, being like, "Oh, I see where they are! I see where they are!"
Nice.
One of the units I personally like, because it's a Supreme Commander alike. Yeah, so it has, like, enemy units. When you kill a unit, it becomes an object in the world you can harvest for resources, which is very vital. Like, it turns... It's sort of like the wreckages in CNC3, where it turns controlling the zone of a conflict after the conflict is over into a valuable resource itself, where throwing, you know, infantry against their infantry might be viable because you want to prevent them from having access to the scrap there, because it's, you know, more valuable than the infantry you're throwing away.
Oh, God.
But, it becomes basically fighting over ruins. But one of the units that you can get, I forget for which factory, is a unit called the Puppy. The Puppy is a walking missile. Its entire purpose in life is to walk towards a target, turn on its rocket engine, and crash into it. It can self-replicate from nearby wreckage. So all you do is you just park one in the middle of, like, a wasteland, and then come back to them and go, "Oh yeah, there you go, 200 puppies. Yeah, time to ruin the back of their base." And, like, people see, yeah, time for a literal dog pile, and people see that and go like, "Oh shit." They have like 10 HP apiece, but there's just so many of them, and they can replicate on the move as well. So as you destroy them, or as they like run past more ruins, more of them just appear around them, and it's just like, well, here comes more of them.
Oh,
they're fantastic. They're hilarious, and they're like, obviously pro players are going to be like, oh, you can counter that really easily, and it's cheesy. And it's like, yeah, it's cheesy.
Fun.
It's so hilarious to just break AI with just waves of puppies that you're just printing out faster than they can destroy.
Nice. No, man.
Every kill they make, you're just making more wreckage you can consume to make more puppies.
Yeah, that reminds me.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go on a geek out there about that.
Another RTS that's going to be coming out. There's like 3 RTSs that are currently in development that I'm really interested in. You got Tempest Rising, obviously.
Oh, I mean, that looks so good.
Yeah, I know. Like the demo for that was really, really good.
Oh yeah, it was great.
They got Frank back for the soundtrack. I mean, come on.
I know. I mean, fucking hell.
Yeah.
Like, God, I am hyped for that game.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, there's that one. There's another one called Dust Front, which looks to be combining a more turn-based strategic map along with actual RTS combat on the ground, and it looks, the aesthetic is just like grungy, dark, nasty, industrial looking hellscape, and it looks great. Like you're fighting weird mutants that their bases look like it looks like if you ever played that shitty Dante's Inferno, a God of War like, Cerberus and that, where it's basically like,
sorry, my brain had a little skip. What's the name of it?
Dante's Inferno, the RTS, you mean?
No. Yeah,
Dust Front, I think it's called.
Dust Front, right? Sorry, my brain had a little skip there, and I was just like, wait, what? What's the name again?
Yeah, it looked. Some demons look like the demons from the Gluttony level.
Oh yeah,
they're like
I've seen this.
These things with huge teeth. Yeah, it's like messed up looking. I love it. The aesthetic for that looks great. And the other one is Dorf. Yeah, DOR.
Yeah, Dorf is looking pretty good as well.
Yeah, that one I like because it's got the aesthetic of those 90s, RTS, but the scale is like, oh, this is exactly how big that vehicle would have to be, wouldn't it? It's like, plus the sheer look of it is just like, oh yeah, that looks really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, on the counter side of that, on the smaller scale of these kind of RTS experiences, there is a game coming out, I don't want to say soon, but in the future, called, come on, I'm just talking about it, my brain can't pull the name from my brain like this.
Is it one with ants?
No, it's one with worms. It is Dying Breed.
Dying Breed, yeah.
Embarrassing that my brain took that long to remember the name. I'm actually in talks with the guy that makes it, and he's a really nice guy.
Nice.
Funded by Micropro. Sorry, dropped a bolt. Funded by Microprose, so that's going to be interesting. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that one's quite an interesting one because it seems to be more leaning towards the commando-centric missions and like the limited units kind of styles, where you're playing as like a small commando squad versus this sort of
versus having a base that is constantly pumping out units as fast as you can make them.
Although it does appear that its base building and the like is planned, but a lot of the immediate visible media shows the sort of more down to scale, unit-centric, proper micro manipulation, not ability spam, but more like positioning and being aware of like where people are moving.
Ability spam has always been something that bugs me with more modern RTS.
Oh god, yeah,
a lot on that. It's like, okay, I'm already having to manage this little blob of units, and it's usually mixed units because I have a different bunch of guys all heading to a certain area, and now I have to select this particular type of unit, and now I have to select which ability of theirs to use. Just let me double click on something and have it do something. That's all I need. That just let me just bury my tick tank halfway in and it shoots out from this little turret mode, or like the underground APC that just double click on it, it digs out, goes to where it goes. Then I can just drop out of all my guys and good to go.
That is, in the chase of making it an esports, the mobification of RTS games is arguably the root of those excessive ability spam, because fundamentally abilities are cool. Like having a unit that can deploy and do something different in like the heat of a moment can be quite fascinating. Not fascinating, but like engaging, exciting.
Yeah, and if you're doing something specifically for an audience, especially for an esport live audience, exciting and engaging is what you're looking for, as opposed to just necessarily good gameplay.
Yeah. Which, you know, it's this is a lot of me going like, yeah, you know, yeah. RTS is such a genre I have such love for, but at the same time, I can't see how to fix it. And I know that it's going to be a niche genre going forwards, in the same way that city builders are going to be a niche genre going forwards, or the same way that like flight sims are a niche genre going forwards.
Yeah,
it's not going to be in the sort of the age of StarCraft being the game that like the esports game is gone, and it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
But,
well, especially when you've seen like when something you love has reached a certain height and is no longer there. I mean, you can wish for it to go back to that height, but depending on the environment that the industry's in and that what the gaming public is more interested in, the version of it that would go back to that certain height might not be what you wanted it to be anyway. Yeah. This reminds me of another, like, one of the action RTS that I like particularly, and again, Mandalore covered, this is how I heard about it. That guy's just like tapping the vein on this particular one. The Kingdom Under Fire games, the Crusaders and Heroes specifically. I also played a bit afterwards of for the first one of that series, War of Heroes. That one's interesting because it's like a cross between Warhammer and Diablo, where you have the Warhammer standard missions, like original Warhammer, not World of War, not Warhammer, Warcraft. I'm talking about.
I you know what's really dumb? I got exactly what you meant, and then I was like, wait, shit, no, I'm also getting that mixed up as well.
I mean, let's face it, Warcraft, Warhammer, there's a lot of aesthetic similarities.
Oh, don't get me started. I can. The legends and rumors behind that are
extensive,
massive, and I will not go into that.
Yeah.
But anyways, continue.
Yeah. Basically, you'd have those Warcraft style missions where you're building a little base and you have your units and doing those missions, and you have to do certain objectives or take out the enemy base. And you'd also have these missions where you're taking your hero units on a dungeon crawl with potions and equipable items and all that stuff, just like in Diablo, in the same game. And again, there are two different campaigns depending on whether you're playing as, the humans or the Dark Legion. And then for the sequel, they went completely different and made something that's more along the lines of a hack and slash brawler with RTS, with halfway between that and an RTS. And it's fucking metal as fuck, and I don't just mean the soundtrack.
I do really enjoy RTS games that revel in the fact that the scale of conflict is fucking horrifying. Yeah. Just there was a weird World War I RTS that I played when I was a little kid. I could barely get it to run on my machine at the time. I think it was like a European import, so it was a bit of a bizarre one. But you could play as any of the major factions involved in World War I, and the scale of horror in conflict in that was ridiculous. Like, I remember one of the mechanics was you could, for free, freeze all your units to check for lice, and it would like raise their movement speed for a little bit. And it was a really weird mechanic where you could just at your base just click a button to spend some I think it's either freeze your units or like spend some resources to like temporarily buff your units by doing something as fucking simple as like basic health care for your units.
Oh man.
And
that is definitely the kind of thing that reflects just how horrible the conditions were during trench warfare during that period.
Building a tank in that game was the fucking game ender. Like, having a tank and rolling up on your base was just like, yeah, you try and fucking stop me.
Yeah.
What was it called? I'm gonna have to go find it now, because it was this really... It was quite morbid as well. Like, it had like gas warfare as an option, like, so you had access to like some real terrible things.
Hey folks, this is Zero from the future. While I was editing this thing together, I found the game we were talking about. Took a little doing, but the Entente Battlefields World War I is the game by Lesta Studio. It's currently on Steam for like $1 as I'm recording this. So, you know, if you wanted to try out a fairly old 2003 World War I RTS with apparently lice grooming mechanics, this is the one. Back to the show.
Don't worry, I'm probably going to go a rabbit hole trying to find this. Or it might have been this. It was a fucking weird one. Actually, while I'm on the topic, reminds me of Sudden Strike, but actually it might have been Sudden Strike. Yeah, it was the Sudden Strike games, the one that had the fucking scary ass scale of World War II. You had like hundreds of dudes on a beach, just like, well, about 50 of you are getting home.
Oh boy. Yeah.
I just love RTS games that are able to explore, like, either go for small scale like Dawn of War 2 did and have units have massive power levels versus the chaff they're facing, or go for huge scale and just be like, yeah, a lot of people are gonna fucking die.
Yeah. I mean, that is literally where the kind of like transition from an RTS to an FPS or an action game would actually work the best, when it retains the same scale as the RTS, only now you're stuck right down in the middle of it. It's like almost overwhelming in terms of just how much it could be happening at any time. There's one, like, also in terms of like games I wish kind of, or not so much wish, but wonder why they never did. Why did Metal Gear Solid never get an RTS? Think about it.
Why did Ace Combat never get an RTS?
Yeah, I guess because nobody ever thought about it. But like, they have bits in the newer games where you're sending troops out to do missions off, you know, from the main story. I mean, if Call of Duty Black Ops 2 can have RTS segments, basically, why can't, you know,
an MGS RTS would be quite interesting. They'd have like some sort of dumb name.
Yeah.
Like they'd overlap the MGS and RTS, so the S overlaps. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like it could work. I feel like it would more likely be, and this is going to be probably a springboard to another conversation entirely, but I feel like it would be more like a real-time tactics game, not a real-time strategy game.
Yeah,
where it's squad
Myth.
Management.
Yeah, something along the lines of like Myth or something like that, where you just, you know, you're going into a mission with a certain number of units and you have a mission to accomplish. Maybe you get reinforcements, but probably not. That kind of thing.
Well, that's actually also something I want to point out. Would you consider Brothers in Arms a RTS game? Because you have squad management and you have to like maneuver around the environment wisely to, you know, defeat any engagement.
I would say it certainly has like that strategy element to it. Like, but
your skills as an FPS player doesn't directly like mean you can win every engagement. You have to be properly ordering your units.
Yeah, well, the same thing for like something like Rainbow Six or Star or you know, like what's the name of it? Star Wars, the one where a Republic Commando, where you have, you know, your unit of guys with you, or, you know, other games like that. I kept thinking, when also for, you know, going back to Syndicate again, the co-op multiplayer on that game that is no longer available, thanks EA, but where you have your actual squad of agents gone to do missions and stuff like that. If they could have brought more,
that was apparently
if they could have brought that into the single player campaign, where instead of it's just, you know, the adventures of Miles Kilo, unfortunately named protagonist, if you had like yourself, fuck Miles Kilo, let me play as Merritt. I want to have Michael Wincott as my main character. I don't care what game I'm playing. I just want Michael Wincott talking whenever I'm doing stuff and being cool. But having
it's the kind of game that would benefit from having a character that would crack sly remarks during combat as well.
Yeah, and me be the one to shoot the people in the train. Come on, you know, you can make it a forced objective. Just let me be the one to do it.
Or even better, if you want to make more of a point of like, oh god, this is who am I? Have the character get on, start having the migraines, and then wakes up in the front of the train with everyone behind him dead.
Yeah.
Exactly. And be like, oh god, what did I do in my pass out, you know?
And then, you know, have literally that be one of the major plot points that, yeah, you work for Eurocorp, whether you like it or not. They're in your head.
Yeah,
Like,
if you
literally,
pass out, your combat software will just take control and continue to fight, regardless if there's enemies nearby or not.
Which, oddly enough, is the plot of the RoboCop remake, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing, weird thing they did for that.
I just like the idea of, like, R&D seeing that and not being like, oh my god, all the civilians are dead. They're going, oh, fuck, did nobody test whether or not passing out would stop the fucking combat software?
Yeah, I mean, that's literally the whole point of Syndicate, is that it's a corporate dystopia. So literally having, like, human resources be the people in charge of going out, grabbing people off the street and forcibly lobotomizing and cybernetically modifying them before sending them back as killer cyborgs. Like, corporate euphemisms of all this stuff. Yes, we liquidated certain assets during our hostile takeover of X Corp. You mean you went over there, shot up all their offices, gunned down the CEO, and took all their research? That's one way of putting it, yes.
And in the eyes of the court, which we own, it's totally legal.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
That's something it's something that I feel like Cyberpunk 2077 should have touched on more, which is, it does in a sort of parody, sort of haha way, but one wonders, like, you never see the tensions between the NCPD, who are trying to uphold some sort of level of law, and the corporate security, who are just like, no, I'm here for the company. Fuck you.
Yeah. Like, you know... Yeah, like having, you know, these security guys... I mean, you know, going back to COD for a second, we mentioned briefly, Advanced Warfare had that, where you have, you know, we can't authorize this, we need an act of Congress. I'm a privately owned company, bitch. I can do whatever the hell I want, including start wars in foreign nations. Bye.
Yeah. No, if we're gonna fucking cite Advanced Warfare, you can't not cite the best fucking line from that of, we're not developing chemical weapons, we already have them.
Say what you will about Kevin Spacey, he makes a good villain in that.
God, that was really well written for him to just be the schlockiest, shittiest villain. I mean, speaking of Call of Duty, and weirdly enough settings I feel like could do with an RTS, I really wish Infinite Warfare wasn't a Call of Duty game.
I know.
It would have done fine if it wasn't wearing that banner.
Yeah, it's just that people were tired of, you know, again, wrong game at the right game at the wrong time. People were tired of, you know, Call of Duty future stuff and want to go back to World War II a bit. And
but the thing is, okay, so I was talking to this to my housemate a while ago. That game reeks of having DoD funding in it, being like, make the bad guys completely evil. There's no good sides to them. They must be evil because we're the good guys. And like the cutscene, like the loading screens have stuff like, you might as well say like, the enemies eat babies, whereas you are literally Jesus too. And it's like,
set dev delenda est, man. Set dev delenda est.
In another world, in another time, that game could have been a really interesting 2-part campaign where you play as both sides of a conflict, with one side being like, why the fuck are we being taxed by Earth? Why the fuck is Earth demanding our resources? Why is essentially the, you know, United States War of Independence of what the fuck? These guys are miles away. Why are we having to pay for them? Why are they taxing us this hard? And then Earth being like, why the fuck is Mars declaring independence? Why is it becoming so militaristic? Oh god, we have to defend ourselves? And having this like two-sided story where you reflect on the horrors of war on a galactic scale.
Yeah.
But instead we get, you are part of Space NATO, literally called SATO, and you're going to go and fight Mars Nazis because they're getting chemical weapons to bomb places. It's such a disappointment because that setting could work really fucking well if they rejiggered the plot a little bit. It could work really well for an RTS.
Add some giant spaceborne mechs, and it's basically Gundam.
It's already got giant mechs. That's the beautiful thing about it. And it's, you know, in a setting where like people can operate those remotely. You know, that could be a fantastic like RTS sort of end gamer unit or like high end vehicle of just having this giant stompy fucking Gundam mech that you can build.
Yeah, and even if it wasn't an RTS and it's just they stuck to the whole FPS formula, I'd love to be in one of those for at least one mission. That's damn sure. I mean, come on, we're both Mechwarrior fans. That dude would tickle our jigglies right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, already that game is really, really. I picked it up during a recent sale, just because I was a bit of a FPS snob back when it came out, and I just pooped Call of Duty.
I mean, to be fair, no one wanted it. Like Battlefield 1 had just come out, and that was fucking like basically sex the video game. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
But like, go on. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. But yeah, I started playing this, and I'm like, why did people not like this? This is awesome. I mean, I'm not interested in the multiplayer for obvious reasons. I've never been that much of a multiplayer guy. But, the single-player campaign, it's got some good characters. It's got some pathos to it. I mean, Ethan's great. Probably one of the best robots outside of HK-47 for obvious reasons.
Ethan is a great thing, and I really would have liked if they had explored like the concept of emergent AI more. And if that was a series that wasn't Call of Duty and was standalone, I feel like they could have done more with that.
Yeah, I
do feel like what's his face? I forget the name of the British SAS officer. I think Yahtzee brought it up as well in his review of it, where his issues with Ethan are suddenly being resolved. I taste his death is inevitable now.
His name was the head of the Marines on the ship. Yeah, that especially if you don't do the side missions before going on to the main missions where that stuff gets developed, then yeah, it's gonna feel very abrupt. I think definitely, but I'm doing all the side missions that I can because I'm actually enjoying them. But I do also like the variety. Like your main character, Reyes, is both a pilot, a space fighter pilot, and a special forces guy. Which means you can have missions where you're just like flying in, taking out enemy, gun emplacements on a capital ship as it's flying out in space, jumping out of your ship, floating off to it in 0G, breaching in, going boots on the ground.
Reaching ships is just something I fucking love. I love the idea of being like space plunderer, kicking the door in and being like, "Get in the fucking ground, your ship is mine now."
Can you imagine a Captain Harlock game like that?
Yeah, God, yeah.
That would be pretty cool.
Okay, no. Tell you what needs an RTS then.
What?
Fucking Expanse.
Ooh.
I would pay good money for an Expanse RTS because you've already got 3 factions. Like, set it pre the gates because the gates kind of
mess things up a little bit.
Well, a little bit. They change the setting quite a bit, so it becomes more about the story of a new front age. But like, having the schism between the Free Navy, the Mars Defense Force, and Earth would just be fucking fantastic because all sides have their own like unique elements. Like Mars has its stealth tech, the Free Navy has its massive numbers, and their giant Mormon battleship. Oh god, I love that.
A gloriously insane thing, but would work perfectly for that. And of course, if you want to bring in some of the stuff from a little later on, the whole strapping engines onto meteors and screaming across the void covered in stolen Mars stealth tech. I mean, come on, that is just...
Yeah, and it's just like, well, shit, how do we fight against fucking deep strike orbit rocks?
Yeah.
I don't like how that
that's
entire...
That's a super weapon right there.
I don't like how that entire, like, issue is resolved by the one guy that was involved in that being their super weapon getting fucking iced, and then the gates opening and Belter's just being like, well, fuck us, we're leaving. It felt like a bit of a cop-out to not be like, we need to resolve them, kinetic striking Earth a few times.
Yeah,
that's a bit of a problem.
Need to have at least a bit of a kangaroo court trial and immediate execution for that kind of crap.
Yeah. But I mean... That I feel like would make a really good RTS in itself, or even an FPS. Like you could do like you're a Marine doing breaches or whatever kind of thing, and having sort of a narrative going alongside. Because I think Telltale's doing an Expanse game soon.
Oh yeah, they're doing. I don't know if it's the first episode's already come out. I think it has, but yeah, you're playing as.
Which could be interesting.
You're playing as that Belter lady. What's her name?
Oh. Oh god, it's got slipped from my mind as well.
It's been a long time since I watched the show, so yeah. But they're doing that, and that definitely looks nice, and it's nice to see Telltale, getting back in the saddle, as it were, after the late unpleasantness with that company that happened. But yeah, definitely the thing about stuff like Command and Conquer, about the Expanse, about all these different settings, is that they're settings that could have so many different kinds of genres of games based on them, or depending on what you want to go with it, depending on the perspective on those settings that you want to have. You want that top-down, more global vision. Having a strategy game is perfect for that. Something that's more personal, more direct boots on the ground. FPS game is perfect for that. Something more about the interpersonal relationships. The Telltale kind of approach is very much perfect for that one. I mean, there's lots of different ways to approach these different settings.
I mean, you're right. The approach is largely a strong impact on what kind of story you want to be telling. It's something that I had an issue with Dawn of War 2, for example, was its scaled down sense of the Dawn of War 2's base, not the expansion packs, its scaled down sense of the vulnerability of your units. I had just come from Dawn of War 1, where whole squads of Space Marines were getting deleted by demons, and you were like, oh wow, that's kind of terrifying. These guys are meant to be the best of the best, genetically modified to the fucking brink of, are they still human? And they're getting demolished by this weird red pointy haired dickhead, and I don't know what we're doing about that. and horrors beyond mortal comprehension being the biggest dangerous threat, and it's we can always produce more soldiers. We can't unfuck our commander's mind.
That's one of the things. That scale is definitely one of the high points of 40K, among other settings like that.
But then you get to 2, and they want to tell a story about a group. So all of a sudden, the group becomes basically a squad of never die until plot demands otherwise. And units that were hilariously squishy, like scouts, are now one of your squad mates is a scout and is arguably the best guy to have at all times. Cyrus is hands down cool dude 9000. Steve Bloom did a great job there.
Oh, well, there you go.
But it's just that sense of scale suddenly shifting to me didn't connect in my mind. I suddenly felt like it didn't feel like the Dawn of War that I knew. It felt like a new game entirely, and it didn't really deserve the 2, even though it's still an RTS game and it's still continuing on.
It felt like a spin-off. Which is odd, because it's a spin-off in the same genre, but it may have lost, due to the changes that they made, lost what made that first one work in that regard.
Yeah.
In which case, it would probably have been better if it had been a different genre, because that one, they could have told that story from that smaller scale perspective, maybe you do a squad-based kind of action game or something like that, or something like something like Space Marine, for instance, which is also very much you have something similar in terms of that scale, but you also have that single Space Marine and his couple of buddies just wreaking utter havoc until you run into something really, really nasty once chaos comes in on that game, and it's just oh crap, okay, things are really much, much, much more dangerous there.
Yeah. Today has just gone from a level 6 shitstorm to a level 7 shitstorm, and that's a logarithmic words. Wow, my brain is
Where's the
shutting down.
Button? We need the Exterminatus button.
We can't do that here. We need the things on it. Fuck.
God damn it.
Guess we're sending in more Ultramarines.
Yeah. Time for a nice big blueberry bomb.
Send in the blues. That's actually something that I find fascinating about BattleTech as a setting, is how inverted it is in that approach, where, oh, okay, we just lost 2 lances of mechs trying to hit that factory. I don't want there to be a planet here anymore. Start bombardment. And then obviously Tinterville happened, and everyone's like, "Fucking stop it!" Well, no, Tinterville happened before mechs were a thing, but yeah,
it's just mechs were really good afterwards for the whole rules of war as they decided to put them to avoid more Tintervilles. Yeah,
God, I
that whole kind of
I love the.
Oh, go ahead.
Go on.
You first.
No, I was going to say I love Techsport described it best. The periphery realized immediately that the inner sphere or the inner worlds had just made rules for war as a sport. Like, oh no, you guys have just realized, wait, no, it's like going from bare knuckle street fighting to professional boxing. You've just streamlined the process for people getting nuked. No.
It's a lot more risky to get into a fight if you know you're going to get your knuckles skinned when you punch somebody in the face, versus when you have a nice bunch of padding, you still punch the guy in the face, but you're not feeling it as much.
And it's more for show. Yeah, it's more for show, really. At the end, you both walk off stage, conscious or not, well, maybe conscious, but alive. Whereas, there's not a 100% chance you won't punch some guy in the nose and, nose rod him straight. Yeah. But
the only difference here is that most boxing matches don't involve so much collateral damage. That does bring to mind some real world thoughts as well. With the amount of directions to drone warfare among more advanced militaries and stuff like that. How much do we want to make war easy and bloodless?
Yeah, because it'll become a point where there'll be drones combating drones, and at that point, warfare is literally entirely automated.
War becomes an RTS.
Yeah, basically, which is horrifying because we see the sense of horrible scale in these conflicts in these games. It's literally the case of the Torment Nexus joke of hello, I am an author, I have written the book The Torment Nexus to tell you why you shouldn't do this. Tech bro, we've made the Torment Nexus from hit book The Torment Nexus. It's just why would you do that?
I mean,
it's I mean, speaking of modern drones, I actually want to talk some about BattleTech in a minute, but I'll get back to that. Speaking of modern drones, it's quite interesting to see the fact that one of the world's, this is going to make this dated as fuck when this comes out, but one of the world's supposedly leading military powers is currently getting styled on pretty hard by commercial grade aerial drones with the most rudimentary of release mechanisms.
Yeah.
To drop just straight up hand grenades on them. It's I think the likelihood is in the future we're going to get some sort of AR or deployable that will allow soldiers to detect drones in the air automatically. Just an alert of there is something in the air over there, what is that, go have a look at it. And
combine that with signal jamming technology to try and break the connection with those things. Although in that case, but even with automated drones, which is even worse.
Oh yeah, which don't need any orders; they just do their objectives and then fuck off.
Yeah. But, did you hear about the one eater robot DARPA was working on? One that actually refuels from organic matter.
Yeah, that's kind of terrifying.
You know what kind of organic matter they're talking about here, right? I mean,
yeah, but fucking DARPA was looking at literally making augmented soldiers a while ago.
Yeah.
They were the soldier of tomorrow is going to be genetically and mechanically augmented, and under so many nootropics he doesn't.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, these are the people who decided back in the 50s to make a nuclear bazooka.
Oh yeah. Your best bet is to try and find cover.
Yeah.
What was that, Davy Crockett?
Yeah, the Davy Crockett. They had an actual full name for it, but sometimes you just got short to the Davy Crockett weapon delivery system, then just the Davy Crockett, and there we go.
Yeah, everyone's just there it is, it's the Davy Crockett.
Yeah. It's just,
speaking of...
Yeah, nuts.
I fucking love the nuclear urban mech. from that one event where they were just like
the one with the Arrow 4 launcher with nuclear
with the singular atomic warhead.
The Wabi special, basically.
Do you really want to win this fight, or will you die trying?
Yes.
Because I think it was RogueTech, the BattleTech mod, adds those in as like a really high difficulty chance spawn. And you see like, oh, what about that really slow moving, low mass object in the distances? Oh, my entire lance is dead.
There we go. Oh man.
That game is certainly an interesting one. But what I wanted to loop back to is
it would have been interesting to get a Mechwarrior, Mechwarrior game, like the actual Mechwarrior games that did the World of Blake stuff.
Well, apparently we did. This is something I get a lot of comments on my Mechwarrior videos for. A lot of Mechwarrior 4, funnily enough. Apparently the Xbox exclusive Mech Assault games.
Yeah, those ones were. I mean, an actual Mechwarrior game though. Those ones were like the first-person arcadey kind of thing. I mean, a proper mech sim.
Yeah, I kind of want to say I don't want to discount them because a lot of people are like, oh no, this is a good game. Oh no! But at the same time, it's like it's not really a Mechwarrior game, so I can't say we got a sequel that covers this because we didn't get a sequel that covers this.
Yeah,
we got a different game that covers this.
Yeah, exactly.
But on that note, actually, a more to the ground RTS where you play as potentially as a what they call them, elemental, brain skipped there, would be quite an interesting sort of FPS as you run around in like power armor, essentially.
Yeah.
With mechs being...
Yeah, modern Terra Nova Strike Force Centauri would be great.
Yeah, where battle mechs are these scary boss creatures of like, oh god, I can maybe beat that.
Yeah, and then you just hit the jump jets on your power armor, jump onto it, and start, like the clanners would often do just from in the fiction and stuff like that. Just jump on top and start ripping in pieces off of them and stuff like that.
Apply fists. Oh. Honestly, knowing more lore about BattleTech, some of the stuff is just fucking hilarious to me. And I think my favorite is probably the fact that the clanners only really invaded because the Comstar were trying to find out, like, we're just doing exploration and trying to be like, oh, I wonder what came over that way. Oh no. But because Comstar are so, like, their infosec is so ingrained into their agents, when the fucking because obviously they don't want, like, any of the houses to get Comstar knowledge.
Yeah, of course.
So, like, their agents are like, you will die before you tell anything. Like, the clans must have been like, oh fuck, if this is how their explorers act, I don't know how the hell the rest of them are going to go. We have to go there now. They're going to attack us first.
Yeah, like, there you go.
You kind of get, they were sort of in the right to invade, because they were like, oh shit, oh fuck. And then those exact same fucking literal software installation wizards fucking stop them.
I mean... Yeah, when you're the only ones who have retained all that old school, SLDF technology in your vaults there, okay, time to bring it out. We got a job to do. Yeah.
When you've been spending the last couple hundred years systematically preventing anyone else from getting anywhere near that as well. Like, oh hey, double heat sinks, yoink. We're taking those.
Yeah, of course, by then the rest of the Inner Sphere has access to that technology, either scavenged from them or it's been, taken out of mothballs by Comstar and shared around a little bit to give everybody a fighting chance. And then things start getting crazy pretty quick.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like there's a sweet point in that setting where I feel like when the clan stuff is still scary and distant and not really accessible, but it's like you want to get clan stuff because it's more advanced, but some of it is back portable to Inner Sphere technology.
Yeah.
I kind of liked that as a sort of progression route, but
yeah, maybe that's the progression that Mechwarrior 2 Mercenaries did, where you're starting out just regular, Inner Sphere stuff, and then gradually hints of strange things happening in the periphery, then all of a sudden you're in the middle of a clan invasion, and you're participating in the battles of Luthien and stuff like that. The final cutscenes is on Tukid.
Well, actually, that's something that I'm looking forward to, because didn't they just recently announce there's a DLC for Mechwarrior 5 that's about
Not
the clans?
DLC, a full new game. It's going to be a Mechwarrior 5
really?
Clans. Yeah. You're playing as Smoke Jaguar. Yeah. You're
Ha
playing
ha,
as
Smoke Striker.
fucking Jaguar.
Why? They had such an ace in the hole. I would have really liked it if it was a continuation of the, because admittedly the commander in fucking Mechwarrior 5 was the blandest, like.
Wait, there was a commander in Mechwarrior 5? I mean, I never,
Stock face man, but the whole kind of, your dad was a recon specialist for the clans.
Yeah,
and,
you were basically one of the freeborn clanners who were sent in as ahead of the invasion just to get intel on the Inner Sphere.
Which, that's like the entirety of Wolf's Dragoon's backstory, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the idea that you're like another one of those that went off and formed his own little group, possibly even with the blessing of the Dragoons, is like, hey, we need to spread our influence. Please make another company so we can, send you contracts we can't do, but we want done in our interests.
I love the fact that Wolf's Dragoons just shows up out of nowhere with annihilators and all sorts of mechs that haven't been seen in centuries, and like, hello, fellow Inner Spheroids. We are here to be some excellent mercenaries. We're just going to work for everybody. Yes, AF.
And everyone goes,
okay.
Okay.
How they managed to get away with that?
I think because they were so far out and like operated quite far away from the center, that like Comstar were eyeing them the entire time, like, hang on a fucking second, where do these guys find this stuff? I mean, yeah, the ending of Mechwarrior 5 being your character finds that like intact clan mech, and it's fucking terrifying, and it just melts through the Black Squadron that the obviously not Comstar has sent at you. It's just like, guess what, fucko? I have clan tech. Prepare to die. And it's like been mothballed for like 50 years as well, and it still like kicks the shit out of them. That's what I love about that setting as a whole, is how you can find like the BattleTech RTS game. Well, not RTS, it's Tempo Strategy.
Yeah.
But that has the whole point of that massive bunker full of mechs that you find, and it's like, these have been here since like the SLDF bugged out.
Yeah,
some of these are still pilotable.
Yeah, it's literally a Briar Castle with an Atlas 2 in there.
Yeah, and you clamber inside, and it's like full of cobwebs and probably a few like creatures living in the cockpit, but it's probably pilotable. Fire up that fusion engine, let's go.
I mean, you have to give the people who designed those things credit. They built them to last.
I mean, it's probably a combination of that and the fact that it's in like a sealed underground bunker that was designed to survive like orbital bombardment.
There you go. Yeah,
it's like, it's probably it's a joke I used to make with my friends when I was a teenager. But like, hey, we should just go to Chernobyl and steal a Hind D from the junkyard.
It's just a little interactive.
It's a little bit rusty. We could probably fix it. It's a complete Hind D.
I mean, what's a little cancer between friends?
It's sad that there was a point where it was probably easier just to buy a Hind D flat up from like some arms dealer than it would be to just go and get that from there.
Oh god, yeah.
But I mean, that was the joke as a teenager though, because it was always like, funny. Because obviously, like Modern Warfare 2, was it 2 or was it 1 that had the Chernobyl missions?
That was the first.
We had to like, where you blow off Thingy's arm and it's like, whoops, I missed. Oh, I missed.
Yeah, we were following Price through Chernobyl and going to that stealth mission. I gotta say, going back now that I've picked up Infinite Warfare and I've been going through those old CODs and stuff like that. I remember I did work for Activision briefly as a tester in one of their here in Quebec City, their regional branch there for testing and stuff like that. And from there, at some point for like a Christmas party present, I got COD Blobs 3. And
isn't that the one that doesn't have a campaign? No, that was 4, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, this is the one with the guy from Law and Order SVU. Chris Maloney is in it, and it's got stars.
Is that the one with the fucking insane psychedelic plot about like the AI that may or may not be developing sentience?
Yeah, and really it's about you being dead the whole time and you being that guy, but you're not really. but really you are because
you're like living through everyone's experiences as the AI tries to like staple together like 8 people it was involved with. Like, is this what being a human is?
Yeah.
Tell me.
I think, again, speaking
I liked that. I think it was cool.
Yeah, but speaking of missed opportunities a little bit, which we've been doing quite a bit over the course of this talk, that game, just even without the whole weird, you're actually dead, this is a dying dream in cyberspace the whole time, as you're being dying on the operating table from being your cybernetic surgery. Just the idea, this AI, basically the idea was it was created by the CIA in order to interface with people with DNIs, direct neural interfaces, to determine threats by just reading their thoughts, essentially. And it was being tested in Singapore on these people who were not exactly volunteers. And it's basically, something went wrong, their minds kind of like, fused up a little bit, and this thing went rampant, to use the term, and resulted in chaos. Here's the thing. Just going from there, not even having it be this, who am I? What is my purpose? Kind of, usual AI shit. Just having it be this non-sentient botnet that is spreading completely uncontrollably through any system it has access to, whether it's digital or organic through someone's neural interface. And that because all the stuff about the frozen forest, stuff like that, is just a recurring meme that the psychologists on that project had, used to kind of calm down the people involved. It's all this stuff is just, as you said, a patchwork of ideas and concepts.
But so that to me, I love, because the idea of a barely sentient AI freaking the fuck out, going through the memory banks of the people it fried to become sentient and going, oh, well, they were being calmed down by the idea of the frozen forest. Yeah. I'll just dream up this entire experience to calm myself down. Like, it's like an animal doing self-soothing behaviors.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the whole thing. And then, they do kind of touch on this, but I think it would have been better if they touched on it more. Like, this could have been really, really cool. Like, the early trailers of the game really, brought up the idea of, like, how far are we willing to go with all this, technology? How far are we willing to go before it kind of overtakes us? Then you have, the introduction of these heavily cybernetically modified, Black Ops soldiers, being used in warfare. And now this thing is like the epitome of that. It's when you get to the final level, it's spreading through Zurich's computer systems, and everything's going haywire. And I would have it like it's not actually trying to do anything. It's not actually sentient. It's not thinking. It's just acting. It's like an amoeba spreading around as far as it has room for. And when it gets into a person's head, it starts, driving them insane, not because it wants to do anything with them, but because it's not supposed to be there, and it's acting like a cancer. Yeah. There's a psychological cancer inside of their heads.
Well, there's a completely different genre, but it touches on the idea of machine-human interfaces. Alpha Centauri, Sidmez Alpha Centauri has one of the research items being about that, and a character saying, like, I think my thoughts cross the barrier between man and machine, and when they come back, they are cold and foreign. And I like the idea of someone having a sort of, I don't know, a tactical computer or whatever, and being like, this is not me. It is something else that is inside my mind, and I can feel it there. And the idea of it encroaching across someone's mind is quite, like, that would drive anyone mad. The idea that, like, if your smartphone started fusing with your hand, you would freak the fuck out.
Yeah.
Like,
and we're getting to the point where people are thinking about actually doing that deliberately, in a sense.
But it's one of those settings where I feel like Lancer touches on it a little bit. Well, I say a little bit. Like, I'm not a massive Lancer lore nut as much as I am, say, like BattleTech or CNC, but I do know that setting has an AI that achieved sentience, declared itself the Egyptian god of the dead, stole one of Mars's moons, like, straight up, like, deleted it from reality, came back in orbit of Earth and said, you guys better stop researching immortality or I'm gonna fucking kill you, and then just left again. Yeah. And it was like, where the fuck did Osiris go?
Yeah. Actually, I think it calls itself Ra.
So, Horus. Is it Ra or is it Horus?
Ra.
Right, Ra.
Yeah. Yeah. That setting has some interesting stuff. I don't like the system particularly much, but it's got some interesting ideas.
I like the idea that anyone can print a mech if they have a license for it. Like that, it's noble bright in a way that BattleTech isn't. Where BattleTech is like this material is decreasing forever, and every loss you have is an irreplaceable piece of equipment lost forever. Whereas that setting's just like, oh yeah, I got cut in half during a sword fight with that giant robot. Don't worry, I'll just go print another one.
Yeah,
it sucks. I lost them.
Yeah, my mech is powered by, well, we're not exactly sure. We think it's a sentient black hole, but whatever. It can turn into a gun if we wanted to, so that's fine.
Command, I'm seeing a copy of myself in the cockpit. Don't worry, it's just you. Yeah, that's the problem.
No, it's okay. It's not you yet. It will be you in 5 seconds from now when you become him.
Oh. Just the copy of you staring at yourself knowingly like, yep, yeah, they're not wrong.
And he's just like... So what happens if I shoot myself right now? Do I stop myself from being him? And the other guy there, your other you is going...
Don't do that.
We already tried that. It doesn't work.
I'm technically you in the future, so I'd have to shoot you.
Yeah, the future you, has to shoot you in the past to keep you in the past from shooting yourself, preventing me from shooting you.
Don't worry, all of this paradoxical equivalent is powering our chainsword somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, I just love the kind of. It's goofy, it's large. I love these settings. I love BattleTech, how dumb it is. I love the fact that like Tex touches on a story where some clanners get challenged to football and then fucking style on the planet's football team and then
Turns out it's their favorite sport too. They have an all elemental team.
But there's another one I remember reading where a beer was offered to a clan Khan, which is like, hey, if you don't fight us, we'll give you this crate of beer. And this guy was like, all right, sure. And then that company was just like, certified favorite beer of this particular clan leader as like an advertisement. And it's like, well, I mean, you're not fucking wrong, but...
Oh boy. Yeah, sometimes for long-running settings like that, where they've really just gone off in lots of different directions, you often find this craziest little stuff just tucked away in one of the little appendices, or just like the stuff that you really have to dig into to find, and it's often some of the funniest shit. Like somebody's little in-joke that they decided to sneak in there when no one was looking.
God, there's just... I just love settings that have had long enough to revel in that.
Yeah.
They don't have to take themselves seriously all the time.
Yeah, but still manage to take themselves seriously enough that they're kind of like... Their tone is kind of cohesive, nevertheless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Speaking of things not taking themselves seriously, I just remembered this. You mentioned earlier the... Oh god, I forgot the name of it now. Tempest Rising. You mentioned Tempest Rising earlier.
Yes.
I have it on good authority. Tempest Rising takes place in the same universe, same timeline as Iron Fury.
Really? Oh, it makes sense.
The FPS. Yeah, it's the EDF. That's the way EDF is so like stretched in a way that megacities are slums. Is they are actively in a global war against was it Tempest Alliance? I think
Tempest
the other
Dynasty. Although in
that's
Tempest Rising, it's the GDF, not the EDF, but
yeah, the GDF. Well, that's the same in
Is it? I thought it was the EDF.
Yeah.
Well,
no, it's the GDF.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, yeah, perfect. Yeah, I'm thinking EDF from Earth Defense Force.
Yeah, same.
EDF 6 is going to be coming in English translation, coming to PC relatively soon, in a couple of months.
Yes.
I'm looking for
it. Yeah, same. But yeah, I played... sorry, brain skipped there. I have some weird cursed lore that I've dug up over many years. So, Bombshell... The original Bombshell, back when they were still a Duke Nukem side character, they weren't originally a Duke Nukem side character. They were a Command and Conquer OC.
What?
I'm not even fucking kidding.
Holy shit.
Bombshell was originally a Command and Conquer OC by one of the devs at the time, who then rewrote them to be like this cool companion to Duke when they were working on Duke Nukem. I think like just various projects there.
I think it was like
and then
what was going to be Duke Nukem Forever at some point, but who knows?
And it is genuinely the weirdest fucking like path line that they made this character as a fan like commando for an RTS game. Then that character becomes like a supporting character that never appeared in an FPS game, and then becomes their own character in a sort of standalone third-person shooter game, then another FPS game, and that FPS game is in the same setting as an RTS game.
Jesus Christ.
So she could still show up as a commando in the RTS game and fulfill her original purpose.
Oh my god.
It's all loops.
Everything comes to full circle at some point. Oh god.
It is. I'm gonna have to find some sources for that before like fucking H-Bomber guy comes out of nowhere with the cite your sources or your whatever. But it was genuinely, when I found that out, I was like, what the fuck? What a fucking loop.
Ay. I mean,
but
it makes a certain degree of sense somehow. No, it doesn't. No, it does not make sense. I can't make sense of it. It's just nuts.
Yes, you can. You just have to accept it. But I mean, it's interesting to me that we now have a gritty cyberpunk FPS set in the same setting as a gritty global apocalypse RTS. And I'm just happy with that. I'm just like, that's fucking cool, because we get a completely different view of the world in those two different experiences.
Yeah, like I'm expecting Dawn and then Renegade have that.
Yeah,
the whole thing.
It's like that, but in reverse.
Yeah, which is insane, but it works. And it's two different companies even doing this, but the same publishers. Which is probably what helps in that regard.
I follow and chat with a lot of the, I say chat with, I've maybe once or twice, but a lot of the people who work on it on Twitter. And it's weird being like, oh my god, I know these people. I was following them before they were making this game.
I know
speaking of Tempest Rising, have you seen their the Dynasty's super heavy weapon?
The giant ball thing?
Ball. Fucking orb.
I may have pondered the video for that, yes.
Yeah, just I fucking love, like, we were joking about, like, oh no, some of these games are really serious and gritty, and some of them are really, like, cartoony and wacky, and that game's like, yeah, so you have, like, Rocketeers and drone troopers and medics, and also they have a giant ball. Help, it's coming at us. The orb is approaching.
The trick, I think, to that is to just... You can't wink at the audience. That's something I think Red Alert 3 kind of failed at. As entertaining as those campaigns are, it's definitely like, you don't have to take this seriously, where you know how crazy this is. Whereas opposed to something like this, where it's just like, yes, they have a ball. As mad as it sounds, they have a ball, and it's coming to kill you, and kill everybody you love, and your dog. Do something about it. It's like, it takes itself seriously within its own context. In that regard. It's like, it's just, go ahead.
There's a unit in a Tip Sun mod, Twisted Insurrection, that Nod have, which is essentially described as a flying meat cleaver. It's called like the grinder or the chopper or something, and it's basically a drone that has spinning chain blades around, like chainsaws, but like
buzz saw on its side that just floats around and carves things.
That's on like tracks, and it just drives straight into infantry. And it's designed to be like a mix of anti-forest and anti-infantry unit that is just fucking hilarious to me, because it's just this spinning grinder coming at you, but at the same time, like, yeah, that would be genuinely morale-breaking to see that coming straight at your, like, and your trench line.
Yeah, and fits into stuff that Nod has already done. They had, like, a flame tank with a big-ass grinder on the front of it, and stuff like that. So that fits in exactly with their style of, terror-based units.
if you can break their morale, they're going to not fight as efficiently.
Yeah.
But no, Tib 3 had to go like, so sometimes they'll throw gas grenades that make them shoot wildly at the floor.
That makes me wonder,
Right,
if they'd done a Renegade 2 taking place in the Tib Sun era, what do you think that would be?
That would
like?
be a tough one.
I would say, have had some thoughts about it. Bring back McNeil as your main character. Bring back Michael Biehn. A, because it's Michael Biehn, and that's awesome. But also, two, he doesn't show up during the entire Firestorm campaign. Because the Kodiak goes down.
Also,
we lose track of it.
Also, in the books, he is confirmed to be a super soldier, essentially. Him and his brother were both parts of a... Yeah, so, which is part of why Kane's just like, hey, bro.
Yeah.
I kind of like him.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, since you don't have him, during the entire, Firestorm thing, basically redo Firestorm from his perspective. Go from the missions, and then the Kodiak crashes, and then he's on foot, and having to deal with all this stuff, and having that whole calamity of Cabal taking over both Nod and GDI cybernetic systems and stuff like that, and now you are there just trying to deal with that. Imagine like the final boss is having to descend into Cabal's core and take him out there, and meanwhile you have the core defender fighting off an entire army of combined Nod and GDI forces in the background while you're trying to make your way to the central core for Cabal and try to take this thing out, maybe even catching a glimpse of that tube that Kane is still in on the way out.
That could be quite interesting, like, route to pursue. And I feel like you could do a really interesting opening with that. You know how in the beginning of Renegade, Havoc gets arrested after like the second mission for a bit? Because he goes off on that mission like willy-nilly. Yeah,
he goes put in a nice little cell to cool off. He's grounded for a couple hours.
Yeah. McNeil straight up takes an entire military force by himself to raid Kane's temple and risks substantially more problems. I would not be surprised if he was not aboard the Kodiak when it crashed.
Yeah, maybe
because he was... Or even just in solitary for a bit while they were trying to work out stuff. But then obviously with the Firestorm crisis ongoing and the lack of communication with the
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. For some reason my brain was just like Kodiak 2. No, the Philadelphia. With the lack of communications with that, they could have someone on the ground go like, "I'm letting you out. You're technically under arrest, but we need everyone who can fight right now." And we know that you are a good ground soldier, because he has that opening cutscene where he's doing the training in the field in Tib Sun. So they could be like, look, we need everyone who can hold a rifle right now. This base is under attack. And then that could be the springboard of you going on your cool adventures through the invasion of Cabal's forces and the like.
Yeah, dealing with that, having still all the, Tiberium life forms floating around and, all this, like at first you might, even better is like, you might be fighting Nod forces at the start, and then, partway through, the Cabal thing happens. Like, maybe McNeil was on the ground during the mission to reclaim the Tacitus from that, South American death cult. Exploring that temple from the inside, maybe getting a bit more, like, an idea of what these people were up to there. Because, now you're on the ground and, seeing their stuff, up close and personal.
You could have the Ghost Stalker being a supporting character. Sort of like a "you son of a bitch" like high five thing, because they have that awkward cutscene on the secret mission where he tries to give some cigarettes. Just like, hey, you want some smokes?
Yeah, it's probably like, look, I know the thing with Umagon didn't work out, and I know you're feeling really bad about that because, obviously they got a bit of a thing, by the end of the Tiberian Sun campaign for GDI.
Yeah.
And then
it goes horribly wrong.
Yeah, it goes horribly wrong when that serum doesn't work. And he's feeling like terrible about it probably. And maybe he and Ghost Stalker, occasionally like knock back brewskis, to try to console themselves over that shit.
I mean, that could double down on like a point of him being conflicted on his side. He was arrested after saving essentially the world, while the love of his life essentially died in a prison cell.
Yeah.
Like you could do the thing I mentioned earlier, where you could have like the two do you support the Brotherhood or do you support GDI? If
Because they have
the
to be
conflict,
common, and it would actually justify, maybe switching sides, because Kane is no longer in the picture. And hell, it means you can bring back Anton Slavics, which is even better.
Yeah, God, I'm so sad they just removed him mid-game.
I know.
But look, we could reminisce about the past and ruminate on possible futures.
Yeah, like
to the
doing
end of the days.
Renegade for Red Alert, where you're playing as Tanya Adams.
That could have been a nice touch.
Yeah.
An exploration of that would be quite decent.
Yeah, actually,
I feel like if they wanted to go,
she gets captured on, that'd be pretty cool.
I feel like if they wanted to go wacky, I feel like a Red Alert 2 one, where you play through like the Yuri's Revenge campaign would be quite fun.
Yeah.
Because that could have quite a lot of weird and wonderful like set pieces. But I don't know.
So many possibilities.
I feel like that would actually. You know what? I feel that would work really well if the style of game was a boomer shooter.
Oh.
Because that absolutely allows you to go fucking bananas. You could have brutes rushing you as like big heavy guys, take a lot of damage.
Yeah.
And then, have your twin handguns have infinite ammo so you could just bounce around the battlefield shooting at things, and then other weapons having actual ammo pools.
Something
just,
a bit
just
like
fucking,
Ryza Triad in that regard.
Yeah. Just have a lot of like dicking around fun energy. Oh,
Which would
God,
fit particularly well with, that campaign specifically. Yeah, because that one is already kind of nuts anyway. I mean, the Soviet part actually includes dinosaurs at one point. Come on.
Yeah, if you go far enough to the left on that section, you can actually, if you go far enough to the left on that level, you can actually find a dinosaur and bring it back to the future. And it's like called like Comrade Dinosaur or some shit. It's fucking hilarious.
Oh yeah.
I need to look it up again because it's genuinely like, oh, that's great.
Absolutely mental.
Soviet forces find a T-Rex, blah blah blah. Apparently there was a T-Rex in Tiberium as well. Oh wait, no, that means Tip's Dawn.
Yeah. I mean, if Lara Croft
Rexy, the Soviet
T-Rex, so why not Kane?
It was called Rexy. I love it.
Absolutely mental.
Faction Soviet Union tech level -1. Yes. So yeah, I mean this has been a really fun conversation.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the time and realizing
the Renegade X Firestorm stuff that's currently.
Oh yeah,
and I'm looking forward to that stuff too.
Yeah, I'm hyped for that myself. Although I have heard some rather worrying ruminations about some interior development woes and conflicts that might mean it might never show the light of day.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at the clock and realizing it's 1 a.m. and my housemate is probably not too happy with me talking.
Yeah, I probably should let you go at this point. We've had a great 2 hours, and it's 2 hours, 17 minutes.
Thanks for having
talking
me.
Here.
Hey, this has been a great time.
This has been my pleasure. Is there any place that you want people to look you up if ever they want to learn more about your stuff?
Come to my YouTube channel, Dr. White. I make silly videos, but yeah, I'm probably gonna plug this myself on like this video when it goes live on my stuff. So if you're here from that, thank you for coming through from there. Give Zero Sum your subs; he deserves it.
Yes, I do. And him, give him some subs too, because he deserves it too. If you're coming from my end of the woods, go check him out.
Ever so humble, aren't you? But yes, don't worry about it, man.
I'm Canadian. By definition, I am humble.
Well, it has been an absolute blast.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me. If you ever want to talk shit about RTS games again, I will happily spend another 2 hours ranting about ideas.
Oh, my pleasure.
So, I mean, hell, when Mercs come out, I'd love to just chat to you about that as a release thing. That could be fun.
Yeah. And I'll look forward to it too. And to everybody else who's been watching, thank you very much for joining us for this long talk about all sorts of awesome stuff. We will both see you next time on our own channels. And until then, bye-bye.
Peace.